I never thought a simple Tuesday could change everything. It started like any other day, with the sun casting a golden hue over the city skyline. I sipped my coffee, trying to shake off the lingering fatigue from the night before. But as I glanced out the kitchen window, I noticed something unusual. A dark sedan parked across the street, the driver's head barely visible as he checked his phone. I frowned, the growing sense of unease quickening my pulse. "Emily, did Mrs. Caldwell mention anything to you?" I asked my friend at work later that morning. "You know, about her mysterious visitors?" Emily smirked over her own cup of coffee. "Oh, you mean her conspiracy theories? She thinks the world is out to get her. I wouldn't worry too much, Olivia." I wanted to laugh off my concerns, but a nagging feeling wouldn't let go. Mrs. Caldwell, our elderly neighbor, had warned us about these visitors for weeks. "They come every Tuesday around the same time," she had said with a serious tone. I had brushed it off, chalking it up to her overactive imagination. Yet my instincts told me this was different. It wasn't long before I decided to take matters into my own hands. If I couldn't get answers from Mrs. Caldwell, I could at least find out what was happening in my own life. I suggested to Emily that maybe we should set up a hidden camera in my living room to see if anyone entered while I was out. "I think that's a bit extreme," she said, raising an eyebrow, "but I'll help you if you really want to." A week later, with the camera discreetly positioned near the door, I left for work with a sense of anticipation and dread. Each Tuesday after that, I replayed the footage, hoping to unveil some clue that would put my mind at ease. It was on one fateful Tuesday that everything changed. As I sat in the cramped meeting room at work, the hum of the projector faded into the background. My eyes darted toward my phone as a notification lit up the screen. Playback complete. Heart racing, I quickly excused myself from the meeting, ignoring the bewildered looks from my colleagues. When I reached home, I barely registered the faint smell of coffee in the air as I sat down to review the recording. My breath caught in my throat as I saw her. Lauren, my sister-in-law, tiptoeing into my living room. She looked around cautiously, and my stomach twisted into knots. There she was, my husband's younger sister, someone I thought I could trust. I watched in disbelief as she pulled an envelope from her bag and slipped it into the cabinet. Confusion mixed with anger roiled inside me as 1,000 questions rushed through my mind. Why was she in my house? What was in the envelope? I couldn't just sit back and do nothing now. Lauren's visit changed everything. She was not the innocent girl I had always thought she was. I had to find out what was going on. "Are you okay, Olivia?" asked when I called her that evening, barely able to keep my voice steady. "No, it's worse than I thought. Lauren's been coming into my house every week. I need to know what she's up to," I confessed, my heart pounding in my chest. "Let's look into it then. We can watch them. Maybe Mark knows something," she suggested. Mark, my husband, had been acting distant lately. I shrugged off my worries as stress from work, but now I was questioning everything. I had to dig deeper to understand Emily and Lauren's relationship and Mark's part in all this. As days turned to weeks, I found myself taking mental notes of their routines. I watched Mark as he left for work, gently brushing past me without a word, his phone glued to his hand. I stood by the window, my heart racing with each passing taxi outside, wondering if it was just paranoia or an actual betrayal. Then one evening, as I scrolled through emails, I came across one that made my stomach drop. It was from Mark, addressed to Lauren. "I'll meet you at our usual spot. Don't forget the envelope." My world crumbled. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, revealing a picture I never wanted to see. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, and a fierce desire to reclaim my life. I can't believe this is happening," I whispered to myself, tears stinging my eyes. It was time to regain control. I reached for my phone, my hands trembling, as I decided to change the locks first thing the following morning. This was a line I wouldn't let them cross any further. I was determined to confront both of them, to demand the truth that had been buried under layers of deception. The weight of betrayal burned fiercely in my chest. I was done being the victim. In that moment, I knew one thing. I would not let them take my power away any longer. The battle for my life had just begun. The following Tuesday, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was teetering on the edge of a cliff. The echoes of the dark sedan lingered in my mind, and with every passing hour, the envelope Lauren had left behind seemed to grow heavier in my gut. It was a reminder, one I desperately needed to understand before it could drown me in confusion and heartbreak. I found myself pacing the living room, glancing at the hidden camera I had set up. It felt like a spy movie, but this was my reality, my family being the villains. I thought about Mrs. Caldwell's warnings and the mysterious visits. What could Lauren possibly want from me? Did she think I wouldn't notice? I sank onto the couch, my thoughts racing. Olivia, you okay? My best friend Jenna's voice crackled through the phone, pulling me from my thoughts. Not really, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. Something's off. I think Mark and Lauren are hiding something from me. I feel like I'm living in a thriller. What do you mean? Jenna asked, her tone shifting to concern. I found Lauren sneaking into my house. She left an envelope, and I'm pretty sure it's not just a friendly visit. Jenna was silent for a moment. You need to find out what's going on. Can you confront them? I sighed, knowing that confrontation would only escalate tensions. I'm not sure how to approach this. I feel like I need more proof before I make any accusations. Wouldn't it be easier to just ask Mark? I chuckled bitterly, shaking my head even though she couldn't see me. And what would I say? Hey, I saw your sister sneak into our house. Care to explain? Jenna sighed. Fair point. But Olivia, you can't just sit back. You deserve to know the truth. Her words ignited something within me. I hung up the phone and made my decision. I needed to gather evidence that would either confirm my worst fears or give me peace. I began tracking Mark and Lauren's habits over the next few days. Each evening after work, I would sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching for any signs of deceit. What I found was utterly chilling. Mark's usual routine had changed. He spent longer hours at the office, and there were nights when he would come home late, claiming he was stuck in meetings. My suspicions turned to certainty when I saw Lauren's car parked outside the office building at odd hours. I snapped a few photos with my phone, feeling like a detective in a low-budget crime film. One evening, I received an email notification that made my heart race. It was from Mark's account, sent to Lauren. The subject line read, "Can't wait for the weekend." I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding as I opened the message. My eyes widened at the words that scrolled across the screen. Every moment with you makes me forget everything else. Let's make our dream a reality. Meet me at our spot. The words blurred as my vision filled with tears. I shut the laptop and gripped the edge of the table, anger and betrayal swirling within me. It felt like a punch to the gut, raw and undeniable. I had been living in a fairy tale while the truth lingered in the shadows. I couldn't let them take any more from me. My peace, my trust, my love. The following day, I marched to the hardware store and bought a new set of locks. I needed to protect my home, my space, from the betrayal that had seeped in. I felt a rush of determination wash over me as I installed the new locks. It was a small victory, but it was mine. That evening, I confronted Mark. Soon as he stepped through the door, he looked tired, but when he saw my expression, his smile faded. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked, taking a step toward me. "Everything," I shot back, keeping my voice steady. "I found something, Mark. Something that proves you've been lying to me." His eyes widened, but I didn't give him a chance to respond. "I saw the emails. I know about you and Lauren." "Olivia, it's not what you think," he started, but I cut him off. "Not what I think? It's exactly what I think. You're having an affair with my sister-in-law." Each word felt like a blade carving through the silence that enveloped us. He hesitated, and in that moment, I saw the wheels turning in his head, calculating his defense. "I can explain. Things have been complicated." "Complicated?" I interjected. "That's the best you can do? Do you think that's enough?" "Let's talk about this," calmly. But I was done with calm. No, Mark, you don't get to play the victim after what you've done. I need you to leave. He looked stunned, the betrayal etched on his face as he opened his mouth. Olivia, please, we can work this out. Leave. My voice was firm, unwavering. The door closing behind him felt like the final slam of a chapter I had not wanted to end. But in that moment of solitude, I knew one thing for sure. I was reclaiming my life. The betrayal that had once filled me with fear now fueled a fire in me. I wasn't done yet. I would get my strength back, and I would help other women find theirs too. When I confronted Mark about Lauren's visits, his reaction was not what I expected. He shifted uncomfortably, the color draining from his face. I could see the gears turning in his mind, trying to conjure up a believable excuse. Olivia, you're overreacting, he said, his voice calm, almost condescending. There's nothing going on. Lauren is she's family. She comes by to check on us. Check on us? I shot back, my heart racing. You expect me to believe that? I saw her, Mark. I have proof. You think I'd set up a camera just for fun? His eyes narrowed, and he crossed his arms defensively. What proof? You've got no right to invade her privacy. Invade her privacy? I echoed incredulously. You're the one invading my marriage. You have no idea how much I wish I could unsee what I found, but I can't, and I'm not about to let you gaslight me anymore. I'm not gaslighting you. Stop, I interrupted, feeling the heat rising in my cheeks. Just stop. I'm done with your excuses. You need to leave. His expression faltered for a moment, and I could see the conflict within him. I watched as confusion turned to anger. You can't just kick me out. This is my house, too. Your house? I laughed bitterly. You mean our house, a house that I pay for with my job, a job that I've sacrificed for you and this family. And now I find out you're sneaking around with Lauren? You don't get to turn this into a power struggle. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the doorbell rang. The sound echoed ominously through the silence we had created. I felt a surge of dread, mixed with determination. When I opened the door, there stood Lauren, a blank smile plastered on her face. Hey, Mark, she chirped, her cheerful demeanor clashing painfully with the tension in the air. I just came by to leave. Just leave, I said, stepping aside and gesturing toward the door. Olivia, what's going on? She asked, feigning innocence. I just wanted to talk. No, I said firmly. You're not welcome here. I know what you've been doing, and I'm making it clear that it ends now. The look on her face transformed from feigned surprise to thinly veiled annoyance. You're making a huge mistake, Olivia. Am I? I said, crossing my arms, because it feels like I'm finally making a choice about my life, and it's going to be without you. Mark, do something, she demanded, her voice rising. He took a step forward, but I held my ground. You need to choose, I said to him. You can either stay with your wife, or you can go with her, but you can't have it both ways. That's not fair, Mark protested, his voice wavering slightly. You're forcing me into this. No, I said, my voice steely. You made your choice long before this confrontation. Now it's time to deal with the consequences. Mark sighed deeply, glancing between Lauren and me. I could see the internal struggle written all over his face, but I felt empowered, standing firm in my resolve. For too long, I had allowed others to dictate my emotions, my choices, and my future. This time, I was taking back control. Fine, he finally said, his voice resigned. I'll leave. I nodded, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. Goodbye, Mark. As he gathered a few belongings and headed for the door, I turned my gaze back to Lauren. You think this is over? I won't let you back into my life again. You've torn apart what was supposed to be a family. Oh, Olivia, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. You think this is about you? This is about what I deserve, too. Deserve? I laughed incredulously. You don't deserve anything. You betrayed me, and you betrayed my trust. With a last defiant look, she followed Mark out, leaving me standing in the doorway. The weight of the world suddenly lifted off my shoulders. I slammed the door shut and leaned against it, breathing heavily. In that moment, I realized I needed to take the next steps. I needed to change the locks, secure my home, and most importantly, give myself the emotional safety I had neglected for so long. I picked up my phone and texted Emily. "It's done. I've kicked him out. Can we meet?" As I waited for her response, I felt a spark of hope ignite within me. It was just the beginning, but I was determined to take back every piece of myself that had been lost in the chaos. I was ready to rebuild and find my strength again. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows across my living room, I felt a profound sense of serenity wash over me. Mark was gone, and for the first time in months, the air felt lighter. My heart still thudded with the remnants of anger, but there was also a flicker of hope. I could finally take control of my life again. A sudden ring interrupted my thoughts. It was Emily, my closest friend, who had stood by me through all the chaos. "Hey, Olivia, how are you holding up?" she asked, her voice warm and comforting. "I'm okay," I replied, trying to convey an ounce of strength. "I think I finally did it. I kicked him out. I'm proud of you." I could hear her smile through the phone. "What's next?" "I changed the locks this morning," I said, a hint of satisfaction creeping into my tone. "I want to feel secure in my own home again." "That's a great first step. You deserve to feel safe, especially after everything." I leaned against the kitchen counter, staring at the empty space where Mark's things used to be. It just feels surreal. I never thought I'd be in this position. Neither did I, honestly. "But you proved you're stronger than any of us thought," she said, her voice filled with reassurance. "What about Lauren? Have you heard from her?" "No, and I don't want to. I don't want to deal with any of it anymore," I replied, defiantly. "Good. Focus on yourself for a while. You need to heal." As I hung up, I decided to make a plan. I would gather evidence, document everything, and ensure Mark's manipulations wouldn't haunt me any longer. With a renewed sense of purpose, I pulled out my laptop and began to sort through the emails I had received in the last few weeks. One email caught my eye, the same one that had shattered my trust in Mark. I opened it again, and the words hit me hard. "I never meant for you to find out. I just want to be with you, Lauren." The admission was like a punch to my gut. I felt both angry and oddly empowered. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. He would pay for this betrayal. The following days, I started observing the routine of both Mark and Lauren. From the safety of my apartment, I would keep an eye on their steps, watching as they frequented the same cafe just a few blocks away. It was ironic that they believed they were clever enough. I noted every detail. The way they laughed together, how close they stood, the way Lauren would touch Mark's arm. It made my stomach churn, but I fortified my resolve. They had crossed a line, and now I was determined to reclaim my life. One afternoon, I caught them leaving the cafe together, engrossed in their private world. I snapped a picture with my phone, a small but crucial victory. If they thought they could just walk away from the wreckage they had created, they were sorely mistaken. The next morning, I received a notification that Mark had sent another email. Hesitant, I opened it and felt my heart race. It read, "I know you're upset, but Lauren and I are just meant to be together. You'll thank us later." I slammed my laptop shut, my hands trembling with rage. "Thank you," I whispered to myself in disbelief. I picked up my phone and called Emily. "Olivia?" she answered, concern lacing her tone. "I just read another email from Mark," I said, pacing around my living room. "He thinks I should thank him for the affair. Can you believe the audacity?" "Some people just don't get it, do they?" Emily replied, her voice steady. "What's your plan?" "I'm going to confront him again," I said, determination weaving through my voice. "I need to make it clear that I won't back down. He needs to know that I won't stay quiet about this." "Careful," she cautioned. "Remember, it's not just him. Lauren will be there too." I know, but this is my life, and I won't let them manipulate it any longer, I declared. The confrontation was set for that Friday evening. My heart raced as the hours passed. With every tick of the clock, I envisioned standing in front of Mark and Lauren, showing them I was more than just the coffee girl they had dismissed me as. I was resilient. I was a fighter. When Friday finally came, the atmosphere was tense. As I walked into the small cafe where we agreed to meet, I spotted Mark first. He looked confident, leaning back in his chair, his eyes just catching sight of me. The smirk on his face vanished as he took in my demeanor. "Olivia," he greeted, trying to maintain his casual tone. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Mark," I said, my voice steady. "We need to talk about what you've done." Lauren's eyes narrowed as she interjected, "This isn't necessary." "Actually, it is," I asserted, looking right at her. "You both need to hear me out. This reckless manipulation ends tonight." The tension radiated between us, thick and electric. As I prepared to expose the truth, I took a deep breath, ready to reclaim my power and show them both that I was no longer their victim. The next few days were a whirlwind of tension and emotions. I continued to observe Mark and Lauren from a distance, keeping my feelings tightly wrapped as I watched their interactions unfold like a macabre dance. Every time I saw them together, my stomach twisted into knots. I needed to be ready for the confrontation I'd planned. Our coffee shop rendezvous wasn't just about words. It was about laying bare the truth. Coffee aroma filled the air, mingling with the scents of fresh pastries, yet I felt the anxiety brewing inside me as I waited. I knew they would arrive together, and I was determined to face them both. When Mark walked in, his casual demeanor made my blood boil. He flashed a smile that felt like a betrayal. Lauren followed closely, her confidence showing through her polished appearance. They were a picture of a lovely couple, one I used to imagine us being. I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging into my palms as I summoned courage. "Olivia, great to see you," Mark called out, waving as if I hadn't just kicked him out of our home. I stood up slowly, taking a deep breath. We need to talk. Lauren's smile faded, replaced by a look of disbelief. "What about?" "About everything," I said, my voice steady, but laced with the anger threatening to spill out. I motioned for them to sit. "I have some things to discuss that can't wait." Reluctance settled in their eyes, but they complied. I sat down, placing my palms flat on the table to ground myself. "I know about your affair." The words hung in the air, sharp as glass. Mark's expression shifted from surprise to apprehension. Lauren's eyes widened and she opened her mouth to speak, but I pressed on. "I saw the email, Mark, the one you thought I wouldn't find." My heart raced as I spoke, a mix of empowerment and pain fueling my resolve. The lies, the deception, it stops now. Mark's face fell, and he glanced at Lauren, whose face had turned pale. "Olivia, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off. "Explain what? How you chose to betray me with someone who was supposed to be family?" I could feel my voice rising, but I didn't care. "You think I'm just going to let that slide? You're wrong." "You have to understand," Mark insisted, his tone pleading. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "Then how was it supposed to happen?" I shot back, incredulous. "Behind my back? In our home?" Lauren leaned forward, her bravado wavering. "Olivia, don't," I said sharply. "This isn't about you, Lauren. You chose to step into my life and tear it apart. Your actions have hurt more than just me." Tension thickened between us, the air crackling with unspoken words. I dug deeper into my resolve, determined to reclaim my narrative. "I changed the locks on the house, Mark. You're not welcome back. Not now, not ever." "Olivia, please," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "You don't understand how complicated this is." "Complicated?" I echoed, incredulous. "You made it complicated when you decided to betray your wife. Don't you dare come here and try to shift the blame." Lauren shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable under the scrutiny. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said softly. "I thought—" "What?" That it was okay to invade my home and life? I could see the realization settling in, a murky mix of fear and regret. I'm not the villain here. I deserve better than this. We both deserve better than this. I never wanted to hurt you, Lauren said, her voice trembling. Yet, here we are, I replied, my tone measured, no longer holding back. You both took something from me, but it's not just about the betrayal. It's about reclaiming my strength. I paused, letting my words sink in. I won't be broken by this. As I spoke, I felt a quiet strength growing inside me, pushing away the pain and anger. I had the power to forge my own path, one that didn't include either of them. Mark's gaze fell to the table, while Lauren avoided my eyes. I will be taking legal measures, I continued, the weight of my words steadying me. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Silence engulfed the table as their expressions shifted from defiance to defeat. Mark finally looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and disbelief. Olivia, no more excuses, I said firmly. This is the last time we speak. With that, I stood up, feeling taller and more resolute than I had in weeks. I had fought for my dignity and had no intention of retreating now. I turned and walked out of that cafe, leaving behind the life that no longer fit me. As I stepped onto the bustling street, the world seemed brighter. I felt free, my heart lighter with every step. I could finally see a future ahead of me, one where I could help others face their challenges too. After all, if I could overcome this betrayal, so could they. As I stood in the living room of my apartment, I could still feel the weight of that confrontation lingering in the air. My heart raced, a mixture of adrenaline and anxiety coursing through me. But more than that, I felt a determination I hadn't known in years. I was no longer just the woman who had been blindsided. I was emerging as a fighter. The next day, I met Emily at our favorite coffee shop, a place filled with echoes of laughter and warmth. I took a deep breath, letting the aroma of roasted coffee beans comfort me. I had a plan, something that I needed to share with her. Okay, so what's the next step? Emily asked, tapping her fingers on the table, her brows furrowed in curiosity. I looked her in the eye, ready to bare my soul. I think it's time to consult a lawyer. I want to finalize these divorce proceedings. I need to make sure Mark can't just waltz back into my life whenever he feels like it. Emily nodded, her expression serious. That's a solid move. You've already started documenting everything. We both know he's capable of manipulating the truth. I sighed heavily. I just wish I could trust that the truth would set me free. There is so much at stake here, and I can feel Mark's shadow lurking behind me. I know he won't go down without a fight. Let him fight, she replied, her voice strong. You don't need to fight alone. You have me in your corner. I smiled, grateful for her unwavering support. Thanks, Em. I really don't know what I would do without you. You've been my rock. As we sipped our coffee, I felt a flicker of hope ignite in me. It was all still new and terrifying, but I realized that I was in control of my life again. The next week was a marathon of consultations with lawyers and gathering my documents, but with every passing day, I felt more empowered. Then, the day of the court hearing arrived, and I sat nervously in the waiting room, surrounded by strangers. I could hear murmurs about custody disputes and alimony agreements, and for a fleeting moment, I felt out of place. Would I be able to stand up against Mark's defenses? Emily sat beside me, her presence a comforting balm. Hey, she said softly, you're going to do great. Just remember, you have the truth on your side, and no one can take that away from you. Thanks for being here, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. It means more than I can say. Finally, my name was called, and my stomach flipped. I stood, trying to steady my breath as I walked into the courtroom. The room felt suffocating, with the judge presiding over everything like a hawk ready to swoop down. I spotted Mark sitting at a table with Lauren beside him, both of them wearing expressions that read defiance and arrogance. Olivia, the judge stated, looking at me expectantly, please take a seat. I sat and squared my shoulders, ready to face the storm. The hearing began, and I listened intently as my lawyer laid out my case. One by one, they presented evidence of Mark's emotional manipulations, the lies he spun, and the affair that had shattered my trust. I felt the tension in the air thickening as Mark's lawyer attempted to paint me as unstable. "Miss Caldwell, do you have any evidence of Mr. Bennett's infidelity?" the lawyer asked. I held my breath. "Yes, I have emails and texts that clearly show he was seeing someone else while we were still married." Mark's face twisted in anger as I recounted the moments when I had felt the ground beneath me shift, my heart racing as I shared the sleepless nights and endless heartache. Each word was a step towards liberation. After what felt like hours, it was finally time for the judge's decision. I could hardly breathe as she weighed the evidence and the testimonies. Based on the information presented, it is clear to me that Mr. Bennett's actions have consequences. I am awarding Miss Caldwell sole custody of the children and granting her the right to live free from emotional manipulation. A wave of relief washed over me, and I grasped Emily's hand tightly. I fought back tears of joy. I had won this battle, but even more importantly, I felt the chains of betrayal fall away. Outside the courthouse, the sun shone bright, illuminating a new path ahead. I turned to Emily, unable to contain my smile. "I did it. I really did it." Emily pulled me into a hug. "Of course you did. You deserve to be free, Olivia. This is just the beginning." My heart swelled with emotion. I was filled with hope, not just for myself, but for all the women who felt trapped and silenced. I would help them find their voices too. And as I walked towards my future, I felt lighter, stronger, and ready to rise from the ashes of my past. I stood in front of the court, my hands trembling slightly as I awaited my turn to speak. The air was thick with tension, punctuated only by the soft shuffle of paper and the occasional cough from the audience. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, some sympathetic, some judgmental, but I pushed through the nerves and reminded myself why. Was there. This was my moment. "Miss Olivia Thompson," the judge called, and I felt a jolt of adrenaline surge through me. I stepped forward, taking a deep breath before I spoke. My heart raced, but I centered myself as I began. "Your Honor, I stand before you today not just as a wife wronged, but as a mother determined to protect her children." I could see Mark sitting at the other end of the room, his expression twisted in a mix of annoyance and disbelief. Lauren sat beside him, her head held high, as if she thought her presence made her somehow immune to the truth. I shoved aside the memories of betrayal and focused on the future. "I have evidence of emotional manipulation," I continued, glancing down at the folder in my hands. "Mark and Lauren's affair shattered my trust and endangered my children's well-being. This isn't just about us. This is about providing a stable and loving home for them." As I spoke, I noticed Emily in the audience, her supportive nod giving me strength. I had confided in her repeatedly through this ordeal, and her unwavering belief in me made all the difference. I forced myself to hold her gaze, allowing her encouragement to fuel my confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, addressing the court, "I have spent countless nights worrying about how this situation would affect my kids. They deserve a nurturing environment, not one tainted by betrayal and deceit." The judge listened intently while the other side prepared their arguments. I could see Mark whispering something to Lauren, his eyes darting between the two of us. I wondered if he felt any guilt or remorse at all. I doubted it. As I sat down, I could hear Mark's lawyer rising for cross-examination. "Miss Thompson, is it not true that you were aware of your husband's late meetings and chose to ignore them for the sake of your marriage?" I took a moment to gather my thoughts. Ignoring the red flags was a mistake, I admitted, but that doesn't excuse his betrayal. I was trying to save our family, not destroy it. This isn't about my failings, it's about his choices. The lawyer stammered a bit, then shifted his approach. "But can you deny that your emotional turmoil has affected your ability to parent? Surely you realize the impact of your actions on your children." I clenched my fists, the sting of his words cutting deep, but I refused to let it break me. I am human, I stated firmly. I went through an immense betrayal, but this isn't about me. It's about how I am fighting for my children's best interests. I am working to heal, and that is what they deserve. The judge intervened, her voice steady and calm. Your emotions are valid, Miss Thompson. Let's focus on what is in the best interest of the children. As the hearing continued, I felt a swell of determination within me. This was no longer just about seeking justice against Mark and Lauren. It was about breaking free from this cycle of pain. When it was finally our turn for closing statements, I stood once more. All I want is to create a safe haven for my children, I said, locking eyes with the judge. They deserve a chance to thrive without the shadow of deceit over their heads. I am asking for sole custody, not out of spite, but out of love. They should not have to deal with the fallout of their father's choices. I returned to my seat, the anticipation hanging thick in the air. The judge would make her decision soon. For the first time in a long while, I felt an unfamiliar sensation, hope. After what felt like an eternity, the judge spoke. Based on the evidence presented and the emotional impact on the children, I hereby grant Miss Thompson sole custody. Mr. Peterson will have visitation rights as deemed appropriate. A wave of relief washed over me, and I fought back tears. I did it. I had reclaimed my life and my children's future. As I stepped out of the courtroom, Emily rushed to my side. "You were amazing, Olivia," she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug. "Thank you for being there for me. I couldn't have done this without you," I replied, my voice shaky with emotion. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, and there would still be challenges to face. But in that moment, I felt a sense of freedom. I was ready to help others who had endured similar pain, to rise together and fight back against emotional manipulation and betrayal. Leaving the courthouse, I glanced back one last time. I wasn't just walking away from my past. I was stepping into a new chapter, one filled with strength, resilience, and the promise of a brighter future.